So as we go through today, guys, if you have any questions, go ahead, send them in using the question and answer interface in Zoom, and I will try to answer those as we go through. Today, we're talking about Nebula and how Nebula can sort of help you um, reduce the need to go to customer sites when it comes to maintaining networks, and maybe in some cases eliminate the need to go on site at all for installations, but definitely help reduce the amount of time you need to spend on site. Um, so let's get started. Maybe. There we go. So regardless of what you think about COVID, it's very clear that it's not going away anytime soon. This is probably something that's going to be lingering around for much of next year, even if a vaccine comes around, it's going to take time to be produced, distributed, people to take it. Obviously, a lot of people are anti-vax to begin with. Other people are maybe just going to be afraid of this one. Um, so even if things are unlocked or not locked down in your state, even if things are clearing up with the virus, it's probably going to be some time for people to become comfortable again being around other people. Regardless of what your personal opinions are, some of your customers, some of your employees may still have concerns. Um, so we did a survey a while back, talked to people about it, and what we were finding is partners were saying not only are their customers, tending to be kind of hesitant to having strangers come on site to do work on the network installs, but the techs themselves are not wanting to go on site for the same sorts of reasons. So Nebula has been designed here as a way of managing your networks, and it's something that's very beneficial in these times to reducing the need to go on site. So Nebula basically provides a centralized, unified, single pane of glass experience for managing access points, switches, and our NSG security gateways. Zero touch provisioning. There is generally nothing that needs to be configured on the device itself before it needs to be plugged in. There's no software that needs to be installed, no hardware that needs to be installed. It's all done free through the cloud. Although we do also offer additional features as part of our Nebula Pro Pack, which are subscription. So one of the first questions we get when it comes to putting something in the cloud is what happens with privacy. So just to make clear here, Nebula is out in the cloud. Out here, the only thing going between your customer's network and the cloud is the management traffic between the Zyxel equipment and the cloud. So internet traffic still just goes right out to the internet like it always was. Internal LAN traffic stays on the internal LAN. So there's no worry about internal documents, internal information being shared out onto the network. Basically, what happens is every couple of minutes, the network equipment here reaches out to the cloud and says, hey, are there any updates? Have there been any configuration changes? And then they'll also upload their logs if they have any to the cloud at that time. So how does this work? How does it make things easier for you? So one of the first things to do here is you can start setting up your customer site before you even actually order the equipment. You can do that right now today. You can simply go to nebula.zyxel.com, log in, create a new customer site, and a lot of the main generic features and settings are going to be there for you. So you can start setting up that network now. Once equipment does get ordered and delivered, setting it up is just a matter of using your phone to scan a QR code. Now that QR code is on the bottom of the device, but it's also on the outside of the box. So you don't even need to handle the device itself. You can simply scan that QR code on the outside of the box, assign it to the customer's site where it's going to be going, and then deliver it to them. So everything is being done and configured through the cloud. Um, the only exception is if you absolutely have to configure a fixed IP address for it to work. In that case, you are going to have to take it out of the box, plug it in, and directly configure the fixed IP address. But as long as you're using DHCP or using DHCP for the initial setup and then you convert it over to fixed IP, everything is going to be done through the cloud. There's no direct configuration required. Once the device is plugged in, it automatically reaches out to the cloud, sees which customer it's been assigned to, sees which site they've been assigned to, and will automatically update the firmware and download the configuration for that customer and site. Nothing else that needs to be done. So basically plug it in, get it power. So in a lot of cases, when you're simply swapping out equipment that's already there, you can go ahead, pre-configure everything, pre-assign the equipment, and simply have your customer do the swap out. Take out the old AP, put in the new Wi-Fi 6 AP, take out the defective switch, plug in the new switch, whatever it happens to be. So again, Nebula works without anything else needed. So there's no virtual machine software that needs to be run. There's no cloud keys. There's no CNAs. There's no wireless LAN controllers. All of the Nebula compatible equipment communicates directly with the cloud itself. And you can access it anywhere you've got an internet connection. You don't need to worry about setting up port forwards, VPNs into the office for remote access, anything like that. Simply log into nebula.zyxel.com or open up the Nebula app and you'll be able to see all of your customers, all of their sites, and all of their equipment. If you're using our NSG gateway, we've made it really super simple to do VPNs, site-to-site VPNs. Basically, all you need to do is go in, choose the sites that you want to network together, choose the topology and hit apply, and we take care of everything else. When it comes to remote workers, we've now got the ability to use L2TP configuration via script. So that works with iOS, it works on Macintosh, and it works with Windows PC. So they'll simply send an email out to the end user, and you simply run that configuration script, and it'll take care of configuring that device to remote back into the office. So all updates are done over the air, both configuration changes and firmware updates. So again, no need to go on site to do firmware updates. Um, so firmware updates can be scheduled. So you can schedule those on a per site basis. So updates are done at a time that's convenient for your customer or convenient for you. And we also have a lot of flexibility on how we do that. You can set it up to configure updates for different types of devices at different times. And you can also set up individual devices to have their own individual time. Like if there's a certain gateway that only can come down during a certain window, you can make sure to set that up first and then have everything else updated at a different time. So again, going back to privacy and things like that, we get a lot of questions. Can we use this with PCI? What about HIPAA? Number of other things out there. So yes, Nebula works just fine with HIPAA. It complies with PCI. And you can see we've got up here on the screen a whole bunch of other different certifications, laws, things like that around the world that we comply with. So even if you've got a multinational company who's operating in multiple different jurisdictions, chances are we comply with all the local requirements as far as privacy and security goes. So Nebula has been designed from the ground up to manage multiple customers and multiple sites. The idea is everything that you're managing is there for you in one interface. So the core functionality of Nebula is free. There's no limit to the number of devices you can manage or the number of customers you can manage. So when you log in here to Nebula, this is the interface you're going to see. Now you can set up multiple different admins and the admin control is pretty granular. So you can give different admins access to different sites or different levels of sites. So for instance, maybe you want your tech one guy to be able to see all the sites, but only to be able to edit one or two, you can set that up. We've got the ability to set up all sorts of different roles. So if you're providing guest access, we can set up a special role for say the person working the front desk so they can generate guest accounts to get people onto the network, and that's the only thing they can change. You can set it up so your customer can log in and see what's going on, but can't change anything. Lots of granularity. But anyway, once you log in here, you get taken to this view here. You're going to see all of your customers in this little summarized view here. It'll let you know if they're using the free or the paid version of Nebula. It'll let you know how many sites they have and how many devices are online, offline, etc. So then you simply choose the customer you want to manage, and it'll take you here to this new view. Very similar. It's going to show you all the sites they have, assuming they have multiple sites. And again, a quick snapshot of what's going on in that network. You also have the ability to map those sites directly into Google Maps so you can see where they are physically. And then you simply choose the site you want to manage, and that takes you into this dashboard right here. So this gives you a good snapshot view of everything that's going on the network. You can see here, we can see how many APs are online, how heavily loaded they are, what your PoE utilization is versus your budget. all sorts of other information. These tiles here are customizable, so you can decide which ones get shown first. If you're using our NSG gateway, we provide layer 7 analysis and can show you what's going on traffic-wise on a per application basis. So we can let you know if it's iTunes or YouTube eating up all your bandwidth, or if it's something else. We can let you know which users are using the most bandwidth. So that's all right here. And from here, then we can draw down even further into the individual types of devices, access points, switches, gateways. So here's what the access point view looks like. So this is showing us here how many clients are connected to the network, or have been connected to the network. We can choose which period of time we want to look at. So right here in this example, we're looking at the last 2 hours. We can see a couple users here who had been connected but are no longer connected, as indicated by the red icon there. And then you see, what the device name was, which access point it was connected to, which is SSID it was connected to, types of security, the connection speed, the signal strength, et cetera, et cetera. And again, this is all customizable as to which columns and which information you're presented with. So it makes it really easy to see what's been going on and troubleshoot issues that might be happening on your wireless network. So here we've got a similar view here. I believe this is on the switch side of things. And then when it comes to configuring the ports here, we can see we've got this view here. In this example, we're charting the uplink usage, but also you can see the individual ports up here, which ones have something plugged in. They are color coded to indicate whether it's a gigabit or a 100 meg connection. And then you see the P indicating whether or not this port is currently using PoE. You've got a little icon here showing this is your uplink port. When it comes to configuring the ports, basically all the switches on the site basically virtually stack together. You can select the ports you want to change regardless of which switch they're on. And then you choose edit and it pops up here and lets you configure all sorts of different stuff simultaneously across multiple ports. So really easy to update VLAN configurations and things like that. So all those features we've been talking about, those are part of the free version of Nebula. So now we're going to start talking about Pro Pack. So Pro Pack is an optional license. Some of our equipment comes with Pro Pack bundled in by default. Other equipment, it is something you're going to have to purchase. So let's talk a little bit about what Pro Pack brings to the table. So on the Wi-Fi side of things here, it gives us a wireless health report. So basically, it takes a look at what's going on the network and gives you indications of where people have been having connectivity issues, right? Which users have had issues, which AP were they connected to. So it gives you a visual representation of what's been going on. We also have some artificial intelligence that, if you enable it, will allow us to automatically make changes to your wireless network to try to solve some of these issues automatically for you. So Nebula Pro Pack also gives you a number of troubleshooting features. So one of the first things we do here with the Pro Pack is we give you more admin accounts, an unlimited number of admin accounts. We store a year's worth of logs in the cloud. With the free version of Nebula, it's just a week's worth of logs, so that helps there. We have an audit trail. So you can go back through that year and see which of your admins made those configuration changes and what those changes were and when. So you can go back through and try to find things like, oh, wait a minute, when did we change this setting? Okay, that was 6 months ago. This problem only started last week. We know that's probably not the issue. We give you push notifications or email alerts when devices go offline. We give you customized reports letting you know what's going on your customers' networks, and you can brand those with your own branding and have them automatically sent to your customers so you can show them what's been going on in the network. A number of other features there. We automatically generate a topology view showing you all the network equipment that's been on your network and what's connected to what. Oh, I think we got that here on this next slide. There we go. So you can see here, it's showing here's your gateway going out to these different switches. Got a question here. Let me see what the question is. Okay, we'll get to that at the end, Stuart. I'll cover your question there later on. As you can see here, just networking out, again, to helping you with troubleshooting, what's plugged into what, to help you start working backwards from where you've got issues. So that's automatically generated. Same with VPNs. We'll generate a topology view of your VPN settings. If you're doing IPTV, and I know it's a really small number of you, but if you're doing IPTV, we have an IPTV alert. So basically, we monitor the IPTV traffic. We generate a report, which channels are being watched, who's watching which channels, but more importantly, we tell you when we see problems on that network. We see frames have been dropped for some reason, and we provide suggestions to you of what needs to be changed on your network settings to help prevent those issues. There we go. So here's a view of what that looks like. I'm just going to skip through it since I think there's probably very few of you who are interested in this. This is mostly big for those of you doing hospitality, or if you're doing MXU, where you're also providing, in addition to internet, providing the IPTV services. So Pro Pack also unlocks the ability to create configuration templates, making it really easy for you to push out configurations across multiple sites. We give you the ability to clone sites and things like that. So you can just clone an existing site and just change the things that need to be changed on it for the individual customization. Ability to create backup and restore points, so you can quickly and easily back up to a previous configuration if something goes wrong. So there's another type of license, and that is our security pack. So this is the UTM, the Unified Threat Management License, that goes with our NSG gateways. Basically, all of our gateways come with 1 year of the UTM services there. So this covers things like IDP, content filtering, antivirus, things like that. So it also gets you what we call application awareness, the ability to have level 7 rules and reporting based on what's going on in your network. So you can create rules real simply and easily based on individual application. Breakdowns of your internet utilization, which sites are using it, where the traffic's coming from, where the traffic's going to. Antivirus reports. And again, all of these reports can be set up to periodically be emailed either to yourself or to your customer. They can be branded with your logo. So that way you can show them, look, you're paying for UTM services. Here's the attacks we've blocked. Here's the sites your employees have tried to go to that they shouldn't have, things like that. So they can see that they're actually getting some value from those UTM services. So here's a quick summary of things. Nebula itself is free. It gets you all the basic features of all of the products, zero-touch deployments, automatic updates, yada, yada, yada. So Smart Mesh, for those of you doing wireless, that's all included with the free version. Going up to the Pro Pack unlocks a number of features, particularly aimed at MSPs and proactive management of your customer sites. It's available as either an annual license or a one-time perpetual license, which basically acts as a seat license. And then we've got the optional security pack here if you're using the NSG gateways. So breakdown of hardware here. When it comes to the NSG gateways, we've got 4 different models. Primary difference between these models is just the horsepower, what sort of throughput can they handle, and a little bit of differences on the port configurations. Features otherwise are the same, so you just choose what you need based on your customer's internet demands and internet speeds. On the switches, it's real easy. We've got the NSW switches. These are dedicated to Nebula, only work with Nebula. All of the rest of the switches that we talk about here are Nebula Flex, meaning they can work as a traditional standalone switch, or they can work as a Nebula managed switch. And you can easily switch between modes, although do keep in mind some of the features are a little bit different between modes. And when you change them, the features don't get transferred back and forth between the modes. So if you change it from standalone to Nebula, you'll need to configure it in Nebula. If you change it back to standalone, you'll need to reconfigure or previously save the old config and then re-upload the config for it to be able to use in standalone mode. So Nebula Flex is GS1920 V2 series, XGS 1930s, XS 1930s, XS 3800, the GS 2220 series, which is relatively new, and the GS 1350 series switches. And then on the wireless access points, again, the NAP models are dedicated just to Nebula. And I should mention here, both the NAP access points and the NSW dedicated Nebula switches will all be going away at some point here in the near future. Everything will be Nebula Flex going forward. And then basically all of our switches, with 1 or 2 exceptions of some older models that we still have around, all of them support Nebula. All of them support standalone mode. Those of them indicated on this chart as Nebula Flex Pro. Those also can be managed with a local wireless LAN controller, including the one that's built in on the USG and the ATP gateways. And those all include 1 year of Pro Pack out of the box if they are labeled as Nebula Flex Pro. So basically everything can be managed in the cloud now, just about. So if any of this sounds interesting to you and you want to play around with it, we do have a live demo on nebula.zyxel.com. You can log in at any point. And we've got credentials that'll flash up on the screen there that you can use to log in and see our demo site, play around with it. Most of the features are there for you. Some of the stuff is locked though. And then we also are giving out 60-day demo kits as long as you're one of our partners. As long as you've joined our partner program, you've qualified for the partner program, we can get you a 60-day demo kit for you to plug in and play around with on your own. So that today, guys, concludes today's webinar. Hopefully I've made it clear how you can see, how this can reduce the amount of time and effort that you need to spend at a customer site, reduce the need to do site visits in some cases, reduce the need in some cases to even have to go on site to do the install and let your customer do the install themselves. If you have any questions, go ahead, send them in with the Q&A window. My email is up there on the screen. Feel free to email me offline or provide feedback, suggestions for other webinar topics, suggestions for how to make today's webinar more valuable for you, whatever it happens to be. Let me know. So we've got one question here from Stuart. Talking about switches, besides the specs of the individual switches between a Nebula switch and a Nebula Flex switches, are there any differences between the switches? So general, no. So we've got that one line of switches that's only Nebula. It's the NSW series. And again, those will be going away at some point in the near future. But everything else is going to give you the option pretty much of using either Nebula or standalone mode. So there's no differences really there, but there are some differences between the modes. And the differences between what features are in Nebula and what features are in standalone is constantly shrinking. Part of the challenge with Nebula is Nebula has been designed from the ground up to try to make it easy to simplify things. So sometimes some of the more advanced features have been left out as we try to figure out how to incorporate them into Nebula without making things too complicated. But generally all the core functionality is the same. But if you're using some of the more advanced features, there may be a little different, reach out to your salesperson, Jacob, David, Try. If there's a certain feature you're looking for, and they can confirm whether it's available in Nebula or not. I hope that answered the question. And that's the only question I've got. So I'm going to go ahead and end today's webinar. Oh, here we go. Stuart was saying, so bottom line is stick with Nebula Flex switches. Yeah, in general, I'd say if you can, standardize on the Nebula Flex switches. I mean, the only thing that's really not part of Nebula at this point are the 1900 series and our 1200 series. So those are kind of our low-end web managed switches that are lacking a lot of the features. So basically, they don't actually have enough features to support everything that's in Nebula currently. But yeah, everything else pretty much these days is manageable in Nebula. So anyway, guys, I'm going to go ahead and end today's webinar. If you had a question for me, just go ahead and highlight it real quick, copy it, and just email it to me. And again, my email is Sean R. Sean is spelled S-H-A-W-N, then the letter R at Zyxel.com. And just reach out to me offline or reach out to your salesperson. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you guys turning out for today.